Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this December 1st, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can listen to my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Time. They also play the show at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, and if you can't get it there, go to my long-standing website at arcticbeacon.com, arcticbeacon.com, and you can get shows going back over a decade regarding what I call the Vatican-led New World Order. Okay, today I want to continue with the subject I was talking about yesterday, and that's the hypocrisy and the basic denial of the U.S. government to admit that they're allowing terrorist groups in this country to train for war against the American people. And I point out on a 5-minute video clip that was in the mainstream yesterday on the O'Reilly Factor regarding a group up in Hancock, New York, which is about 145 miles north of New York City, called Islamberg. And the FBI has pictures of these radical Muslims living on a 60 to 70 acre plot of land and training for war with weapons in military marches. And they're doing nothing about it but monitoring it. While at the same time, the same people are raiding Christian ministries. And the one I point out is the Alamo Ministry. And these people were never dangerous, never had any weapons, there was never any child abuse, nothing. They were teaching the Bible and providing an atmosphere for the members of this church, a Christian atmosphere. They were no harm to anyone, except the only thing they did is they pointed out that the Vatican in the book of Revelations was the Antichrist symbol and how they worked together with our government behind the scenes to allow these things to go on. And because of their huge following all over the world, they had to stop Pastor Alamo from doing that. So they framed him and put him in jail for 175 years. So yesterday I was pointing out the hypocrisy of this. And what I wanted to do today is show you, again, I want to play this 5-minute clip again so I can get more coverage on this. And like I said, the mainstream only goes so far. They don't get into the hidden agenda behind why this is going on. But at least we know that it's going on. And there's a group called the Clarion Project who have been basically looking at extremism, radical Islamic extremism in this country. I might add there was a you heard about the man who drove his car into pedestrians on Ohio State University campus and then got out of the car and started wielding a knife and actually stabbed about 9 people before a police officer had to shoot him to death. Now, in the background of this guy, he was from Somalia. His statements were basically that he was radicalized. He had Facebook accounts of this, etc. But the Obama administration today, the FBI, will not call it what it is. They won't even mention radical Islam. They will not even call it a terrorism yet. I mean, it's an obvious. I mean, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. But that's what we're up against here. And over the years, going all the way back to 9/11, and the whole idea of allowing these groups to function here. Outwardly, you see these extremist groups like the ones in Hancock, New York. And then also, more quietly, you see the Fethullah Gulen movement here, the intellectual side of this Trojan horse, getting funding from our government to the tune of $150 million a year, allowing charter schools to exist. And we've pointed out in this show almost a decade ago who Fethullah Gulen really is and what he was doing in Europe back then, fronting himself as a moderate Muslim. But behind the scenes, he's fostering a caliphate here. Now, it's strange to me also that our government right now, it's going to change, I think, with Trump, is allowing charter schools to exist for this Muslim movement, but however doesn't allow people in the inner cities to choose their own schools. Correct? And Trump wants to come in and change that and allow people to choose from charter schools, private schools, etc., etc. So we're going to look at that too in the future, see if that ever comes to being. But the person that he put in the education department seems to want to do that as well. And maybe we'll get a boost in homeschooling. So that's another subject. So what we're doing is looking at this one example, like I said, is this group up in Islamburg. And this video explains it pretty well. It's a 5-minute clip only. So I want to play it again so I can get more exposure on this, because people need to understand. And how I'm relating this to the Alamo ministry is that you can see the hypocrisy. You can see exactly what they're doing. The FBI, CIA, IRS, they go after Christian groups, conservative groups, such as the Alamo ministry. In this case, the most the tragic of all, they not only put this man in jail, Tony in jail, on false charges, but they took all their children away. They put civil suits on this. They're trying to take all their property. And this isn't the first time this happened to them. They've been trying this for 40 years. But the ministry still exists. And we've talked about that many times on this show. But my question right now, after you listen to this 5-minute clip again, is why would they allow these groups in this country to exist, these radical extremist groups with weapons and what have you, to destroy this Western civilization, while they'll harass and attack Christian ministries? It's pretty clear. We've talked about the connection between Rome, the Pope, and Islam, what's going on there. And, I talk a lot about Fethullah Gulen. Well, he's also met with the Pope a number of times, starting with Pope John Paul II. So there is an Islamic connection here. And their idea of one world government, one world order is pretty, this is one way they're going to try to do that, because without destroying America, they can't ever have it. And they're doing it from within. And we're going to listen to a mainstream report that tells you what's happening, but it doesn't really give you what we do on this show, and that's getting to the whole truth. And as O'Reilly likes to say, the spin stops here with his show. The spin doesn't completely stop there, Bill. I think you know a little bit more, but you're not telling us. But that's why people come to my show, to add that one question: what's going on behind the scenes? So let's listen to this again so you understand the hypocrisy and exactly what's going on.
Called the Clarion Project, which is dedicated to exposing the dangers of Islamic extremism. Recently, we asked Clarion to pinpoint for us 5 dangerous situations here in the USA. With us, Ryan Amaro, National Security Analyst for the Clarion Project. So you have many, many more than this, but we picked the top 5 that I think will be of interest. The first one is in Hancock, New York, about 145 miles northwest of Manhattan. What's going on in Hancock?
There's actually a place there called Islamburg. They have a sign that says, "Welcome to Islamburg." It's about a 60, 70-acre large compound, and it's the headquarters for a group called Muslims of the Americas that follows a radical cleric in Pakistan. The videotape that's on the screen is something that was given to me by law enforcement, showing them engaging in guerrilla warfare training at that Islamburg compound.
Okay, so Islamburg, upstate New York, they have weapons. It's private property.
Right.
All right, they're training on the property. Can the authorities do anything about it?
Beyond monitoring them, no, because they're not listed as a foreign terrorist organization. FBI documents that we've obtained do show that they consider them a threat, but because they don't have that designation, they're able to operate in the U.S. and we have
Do you know how many people are up at this compound?
And that specific one, no, but the estimates of the number of members that this group has across the country, they say they have 22 of these places across the country, is somewhere around 3,000.
Training ground. Wow. All right, now we have the Dar el Hurrah Islamic Center in Falls Church, Virginia. What's going on there?
Right, a history of radical leadership over there. Anwar al-Awlaki used to be their imam before he went over and he joined Al-Qaeda. And there was even videotape that was taken of the current imam speaking recently in Virginia, where he specifically said that Muslims should be first in line to get the arms for jihad.
All right, so at this center in Falls Church, there's an imam there presently, right, who wants to get arms for the jihad.
He preaches that is a requirement upon Muslims.
Wow. All right, the third one is one I mentioned last night in Brooklyn, New York, with John Stossel. It's the Masjid at-Taqwa Mosque. What's going on here?
That's led by Siraj Wahhaj, one of the most radical imams in the country, yet he manages to be a rock star speaking at Muslim events across the country,
yeah,
even college campuses.
He's going to be in Dallas this weekend in Garland, Texas for a big conference, and I brought that up to the imam we had on last night, who didn't seem to think this guy was so radical.
He didn't address that. He was addressing the issue of whether he's been prosecuted, which is a whole nother thing. If you look at what he's been preaching, it's sheer anti-Americanism, turning America into a caliphate, and his mosque was even suing the NYPD because they were conducting surveillance.
That's right, that de Blasio pulled off. So this is a bad hombre, as I said to Sasa last night. Then there's another one in New York City. This is in Jamaica, Queens, the Islamic Circle of North America. What's this all about?
This is a major organization with origins in Pakistan, with an Islamist group over there. Polls show that only about 2% of Muslim Americans say that this group represents them, but they're one of the most well-organized there. One of the leaders was actually indicted on war crimes in Bangladesh, and we have a copy of one of their teaching guides that tells Muslims to engage in deception in order to advance the jihadist cause and to implement Sharia governance.
All right, then this comes out of Queens, right? This out of this mosque. That's
the headquarters.
That's the headquarters. All right, and finally, and this is the most controversial one, you have CARE, the Council on American-Islamic Relations, and they've been on this program. They do a lot of media. And what are you saying, that they're a dangerous group?
Yes, they are basically a political influence operation of the Muslim Brotherhood, according to the Justice Department, not according to me. They specifically listed CARE as an entity of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood, specifically its Palestine Committee that was secretly set up to advance the Hamas agenda. And the FBI wiretapped their leaders in 1993, talking about setting up CARE so that they could influence the media in their direction.
Well, and that's what they do. They come out and they say, look, we're moderates, and we just want to give you our point of view. But you say that they're directly tied into terrorist groups?
Into the Muslim Brotherhood, yes.
Which is a terrorist group.
Right, and Hamas is the Palestinian wing of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay. Now, final question is, this is pretty frightening stuff, but you would assume the FBI knows about all of this, if you know about it, and the Justice Department is surveilling them and have them under control. And in a free and open society, this is the rest of them that we didn't talk about. This is the map that all of these have radical Muslim mosques or operations in all of those towns. And it's amazing. Look at them. Sacramento, outside of L.A., Pittsburgh, Chicago, on and on. So my question is, should Americans be concerned, or is this under control?
It can't be under control just through monitoring them. And again, when it comes back to the issue of the ideology, which President Obama refuses to recognize, that's the problem here. It's not just about the person that's setting off the bomb. It's about the overall ideology that combines mosque and state, that justifies jihad anywhere, and we need Muslim leaders to step up and fight against those interpretations. The most positive news I've seen is the poll that showed that these organizations have so little support among Muslim Americans.
Right. All right.
Okay, there you have it. You can go to my show yesterday, and I gave you a little bit better explanation and got more in depth on this problem. However, it was interesting that when O'Reilly asked Mr. Morrow of the Clarion Project why the FBI doesn't go in and do something about this, he said they can't because they're not listed as a worldwide terrorist organization. Well, maybe, what about the Alamo Ministry? They're not a terrorist organization, but it was in 2008 when over 100 SWAT team members with weapons stormed that peaceful Christian ministry. That seemed to be okay. It's just too much when you think about it, but we'll talk more. But here's what I want to do. The Clarion Project has a website, And on that website, there's a movie that they present. One of the things, there's a lot of information there. It's called The Third Jihad. Okay, now what is The Third Jihad? This movie, I'm going to play some of it here. It's about an hour-long movie. I won't be able to get all of it, but we'll start it today. And really what it is a film that exposes the threat that Islamic extremism poses to the American way of life. In 1988, we're going way, way back, the FBI discovered a secret Muslim Brotherhood document which laid out their plans to replace the Constitution with Islamic Sharia law. This original document accepted as evidence in Holy Land Terror financing. This document is kind of the outline of what they have planned, and they're allowed to grow here. This is not. We have to think about this, folks. Now, this movie was put together by a doctor, a Muslim, and also he was in the Navy as an officer, and he wanted to out radical Islam. So let's listen to this and see where it takes us.
It didn't take long after 9/11 until it was revealed that Muslims were behind the attacks.
فهؤلاء الشباب قاموا بعمل عظيم جدا، بعمل جليل، وأعطوا أمريكا درسا لن تنساه بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى.
I had expected to see Muslims in America taking to the streets and protesting against bin Laden. Instead, in the years that followed, we saw many Muslim leaders standing up to defend or support the radicals.
Stop calling them suicide bombers. They are not suicide bombers, they are heroes.
And it's about time that we have an intifada in this country that changes fundamentally the political dynamics in here.
So I formed my own organization, and I protested.
Where are the Muslims? Where are they in speaking out and condemning terrorism?
Local Muslim leaders refused to participate in the rally. In fact, shortly afterwards, I was outcast by the Islamic leadership across the country, and there was even a cartoon published in a Muslim newspaper that portrayed me as a dog cannibalizing a religious leader. It wasn't until I saw this document written in America by American Muslims that I understood what was really going on. A strategy to infiltrate and dominate America. We all know about terrorism. This is the war you don't know about.
I think there is a general tendency to underestimate the threat which is offered to us in the present global conflict.
I think the public in America is denied the strategic truth. Media and elite are not helping.
The vast majority of Americans no longer are falling for the trick of the bad terrorists who are out there to get us.
They are framing the debate as Iraq, or as Afghanistan, or as Guantanamo Bay. They're not showing the public the big picture.
جهاد ابتدائي معناه غزو العالم من أجل نشر كلمة لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله في ربوع العالم.
It's an entire movement, and the idea of it is hatred for our way of life.
فأمريكا إلى زوال والإسلام إلى بقاء.
Now, I wanted to mention, we're not going to get into the hidden agenda here, the inside job regarding 9/11, and the connections between our government, the elites, those in control, the Pope, the Jesuit order, fostering this to happen for a reason. But let's look at what the threat is in this country that we never hear about. Here we go. We'll get back to this right now.
The
clash between Islam and Christendom has now been going on for more than 14 centuries, since the advent of Islam.
The first key point that Americans need to know is that this is a war, a jihadist war, which started before 9/11, before the end of the Cold War, before the beginning of the Arab-Israeli conflicts. It's a very long war with deep roots.
This is a war about religion, not because we wish it to be so, but because the radical Islamists have named it so.
فهذا يدل بوضوح على طبيعة هذه الحرب وعلى أن هذه الحرب هي حرب دينية في الأساس.
This is a global cosmic struggle between two religiously defined civilizations, which will end only when they triumph universally.
There were two major jihads in history. The first one was during the beginnings of the early Islamic Empire.
In the 7th century AD CE, Arab Muslim armies erupted from Arabia and conquered a lot of lands.
When the Arabs came out of Arabia and moved into the Fertile Crescent, eastwards to Iraq and Iran and Central Asia and India, westwards to Syria, Palestine, Egypt, North Africa, and from there into Europe, where they ruled Spain and Portugal and a good part of Italy for quite a while. That was obviously not done by peaceful persuasion.
That was the first major jihad. The second jihad, when the Turks invaded the Balkans all the way to the walls of Vienna.
They conquered the great Christian city of Constantinople in 1453, and they were able to expand into southeastern Europe, conquering the whole of the southeast.
And where we find ourselves today, we're in the third and final phase of their mission to bring about the domination of their version of Islam.
If one wants to find out what is motivating radical Islam, surely it's more sensible to look at what they actually say they're doing and what their intentions actually are.
The main goal of our jihad and resistance is to implement the law of Allah and to fight against the infidels all over the world and implement one religion across the world.
ما نعتقده أن جميع الأرض لا بد أن تكون تحت حكم الإسلام لا يخرج عن ذلك ذرة واحدة منه
نحن العالم من أجل أن تنتصر كلمة لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله على خطة موسكو وواشنطن وباريس.
Okay, basically these guys are saying that there must be one religion in the world, and everyone, there's only one God, and that's Allah, and this is the final jihad, and this is going to spread worldwide. Well, here's the point I'm trying to make. They're here right now. How did they get here? We talked about the first jihad. Who actually created Islam? That's the point we need to start with. And when you find out it could have been or must have been, could have been, probably created by the Vatican itself to create an enemy, you can see a lot of the missing links. But this is interesting because we have to really start here and then peel the onion back and find out really where it came from and who was behind Islam in the beginning. And we've done shows on that. We'll do more in the future. Back in 3 minutes for the second half of the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. We're going over the third and final Jihad, Radical Islam's Vision for America and the World. It's a film that's put on the Clarion Project website that we talked about, a group looking at radical extremism in this country. So we're not going to get into the hidden agenda of the elites, the Vatican, the Jesuit order. We're not going to get into today the history of the Vatican's role in creation of Islam and the writing of the Quran and the reason they did it. We're not going to get into the possibility and the probability that this group, this radical Islamic vision for the world, is being sponsored by the elites, by the people behind the scenes controlling our government agenda. And it's pretty simple when you look at the Obama administration. I mean, everything is geared towards not protecting America, whether it be in the domestic or foreign affairs. And we're not going to get into that today. We're just going to look at what this man found out about the third and final Jihad. So let's squeeze it in here. We got about, I won't be able to get it all today, but let's get as much as we can.
In the world's most populous Muslim nation, a call for Islamic law.
So when we look at the conflicts in India, Chechnya, Gaza, Indonesia, Iraq, Somalia, and countless other countries, this is what's at the root: the quest for Islam to become the dominant religion and Sharia the law of the land.
It seems so preposterous and so unbelievable, but yet thousands and millions of people follow this. And take it seriously.
Radical Islamic law versus Western freedoms.
To discard these incoherent, illogical beliefs, theories, and conjecture? Isn't it time for every Christian, Jew, pagan, and atheist to cast off the cloak of spiritual darkness which enshrouds them and emerge into the light of Islam?
Have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if the Islamists won and their version of Sharia law was put into place? All you need to do is look at countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Sudan, and Somalia, and places like the Gaza Strip, and you'll see that those places are human rights disasters.
Across the world, we see that Christians are having a terrible time of it.
Christians in Iraq are deliberately targeted. The past 6 months alone, 7 priests have been kidnapped and 2 of them murdered.
All kinds of countries. We see Christians being persecuted, being oppressed, their churches being burned down, Christians being murdered, sometimes in very large number.
They were in the church for prayer when the car bomb went off.
The Christian communities in most Muslim countries now clearly feel themselves to be under strain. It is noticeable, for example, that a town like Bethlehem, which was once predominantly Christian, now has very few Christians remaining.
Bethlehem is once a Christian city, but today Christians are only about 10 to 15% of the population here.
My father's been shot at 3 separate times for one simple reason: carrying that cross and walking every day.
Where there are Christian minorities and where there are Jewish minorities in any one of the countries where there is an Islamic majority, they are persecuted, they are overtaxed, they have to hide their religion.
चंद इस्लामिक मुल्कों में, मिसाल के तौर पर सऊदी अरेबिया, etc. में propagation of any other religion is prohibited. Even construction of any place of worship is also prohibited.
In the homeland of Islam, Saudi Arabia, the Vatican of Islam, you're not allowed to build a church and you're not allowed to carry a Bible. It's both an offense.
और अल्लाह ताला फरमाते हैं सूरह इमरान सूरह 3 आयत नंबर 85 में क्या इस्लाम के अलावा कोई भी अगर मज़हब अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला कबूल नहीं करेगी। तो दीन के मामले में हम जानते हैं इस्लामी से सही दीन है, इसीलिए हम दूसरे दीन का प्रोपगेशन अलाउ नहीं करते।
Look at the Taliban when they got into Afghanistan. They put out a fatwa to destroy the Buddha statues. That were there for hundreds of years and they were very valuable.
The Islamo-fascists who are attacking the world want to impose their beliefs on the world.
Not many people are aware of the fact that in Iran you'll find the so-called modesty police patrolling the streets.
گلمون وانتود هم تنگه هم خیلی چکش بازه کنه بنده دیگه فقط موهاتون الان بیرون شهرتون رو زحمت بکشین درست کنین توی کشور اسلامی زندگی میکنیم درسته موهاتون هم الان کاملا پیداست آرایشتون هم تنده شلوارتون هم که کوتاهه شما با ما تشریف میارید داخل اتوبوس.
If women are caught wearing the wrong clothing, they could be fined or even arrested.
To women entering this shop in Tehran, a message saying all clothes sold here have been approved by the police. The length and size of coats, nothing too short, nothing too tight, and mostly in black. Women who shop here know there's no risk of getting a warning or being arrested for indecency.
من هؤلاء الذين يقررون لماذا يجب أن أكون عليه؟ لماذا تعاملوني كسيدة كأنني ناقصة حقيقية وهنالك دائما صوت ذكوريا يقرر لي ما يجب أن أكون عليه.
As a woman, if you All individuals are different, but if you are an individual woman with a strong character and you rebel against this kind of life, you run more than anyone else the risk of being beaten, abused, your spirit being killed by your own family, by your own loved ones.
ولا بد أن نعلم أن الضرب عقوبة شرعية لا يملك إنسان أن ينكره لأن الذي شرعها هو الذي خلق هذا الإنسان.
هو لا شك أن الضرب هو يعتبر وسيلة من وسائل الإصلاح.
قال لي أنا ماني جاي أضربك، أنا جاي أقتلك. ومسك في رقبتي وسدحني على الأرض وبدأ يخنق فيها بنظرات يعني.
But the issue of men controlling women's lives goes much deeper. It can even result in murder.
Just another teenager with everything to live for, except that Heshu Yonez was trapped between two cultures. When she began a relationship with a Christian Lebanese boy, her strict Kurdish Muslim father slit her throat.
Chowdhury Rashid is charged with first-degree murder in the death over the weekend of his 25-year-old daughter, Sandila Kanwal. Based on what police say, this could be what's known as an honor killing, the murder of a woman, often by a family member, to punish her for shaming the family.
According to the United Nations, some 5,000 women and girls are victims of so-called honor killings every year, whether it's because they've been seen talking to a man, refusing an arranged marriage, or even suffering rape. They're murdered for one reason only. They're perceived to have brought shame on their family. And it's often the family that carries out the sentence.
This is Aksa Parvez. Her father told authorities that he strangled her, allegedly, because she wouldn't wear a headscarf.
We are bound by the rules. If a woman runs away, she must be killed.
Good name is more important than the penalty. We don't care about the penalty. A good name is the most important thing in our world.
Islam does not countenance honor killing, but has nevertheless become part of Islam as practiced in much of the Islamic world.
It's not just women and children that are repressed in these countries. You would never want the government to find out you're gay.
In a society where radical Islam rules, gays are seen to be people with a contagious disease, a very bad disease.
هذا فساد كبير. هذا فساد كبير.
Sometimes we are blunt. When the Islamic ruling system is established, like you said, we gotta give them a choice. We gotta consult them, give them choice of therapy, and tell them to abandon their homosexual lifestyle. And if they don't, either leave, or if you want to be here, then you're gonna be face a punishment as a criminal.
What's the punishment?
Of throwing off a cliff when you have a homosexual sodomy.
زواج الاثنين زواج الذكر مع الذكر والأنثى مع الأنثى وهذه مصيبة كبرى ومحرمة في الإسلام جملة وتفصيلا بل يقتل الذي يقوم بزواج الذي يقتلان الاثنين يقتلون بأسرع وقت بل يحرقون
من وجدتموه يعمل عمل قوم لوط فاقتلوا الفاعل والمفعول.
The faces of Iraq's persecuted gays are too many to show. They've been shot, burned alive. In some cases, their heads were severed. Here, a gay man being beaten to death.
If you look at countries like Iran, they flog them and they hang them. And that's only because you're gay.
In Iran, we don't have homosexuals like in your country. We don't have that in our country.
Day parade is a perfect microcosm of Muslim representation in America. You had a majority of Muslims that were of all races, creeds, and heritage that were celebrating their country and were clearly proud of being American.
I live in America, I work in America, I sleep in America, I was born in America. I love this country.
But unfortunately, there are also those Muslims that hold more radical views.
Islam will dominate. That's what it will be.
These groups are not Al-Qaeda, they're not Hamas, they're not Hezbollah, and most of them are non-violent. But they still want to replace American law with their version of Sharia, Islamic law.
We want to see Sharia here, and it will be. The flag of La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, will be, inshallah, in the White House if that's what we choose to be. It just takes time. The American people are waking up now.
Allah does say that the whole world eventually will be under his ruling. The world will come down to where everybody obeys the laws of God. Simple as that.
When groups like these talk about wanting to create a global Islamic state and Islam dominating the world, you realize that they hold some of the same goals as Al-Qaeda and millions of radicals around the world. And that's what makes them dangerous.
There's no compulsion in Islam. That means we can't force it on you. But we will force Islamic Sharia, inshallah.
Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. There are over 1.3 billion adherents, and it's also thought to be the fastest growing religion in America. One of the most common questions I get when I speak to audiences around the country is, what percent of Muslims in America are radical? And the Pew poll in 2007 actually provided some staggering numbers about that.
In a hair-raising number, the Pew Research Center reports on a new poll that as many as 1 in 4 young American Muslims condone suicide bombings against civilians, at least sometimes.
Nearly 25% of Muslims, 25 under 30, found suicide bombings to defend their religion as acceptable.
So you're talking about just about 200,000 folks who believe in suicide bombing. What do you make of this, Steve?
Well, I think the numbers are absolutely frightening. Unfortunately, the mainstream, in quotes, American Muslim leadership has been in denial.
What's happening? Where's the disconnect? What's the influence there?
The influence is basically political Islam, which is you have sermons that are not being given about the love of God. They're hearing about every plight to blame the West. And in exchange, they have nothing to offer other than hate.
As we move further and further away from September 11, 2001, as we remain safe during that period, there are going to be increasing number of people who either don't see the threat as clearly, or their psychological makeup is going to want them to wish it away.
It is definitely here. I don't want to overstate the problem, but there is a danger of understating the problem of homegrown Islamist terrorism. And the fact is, we have now had a series of cases that have thankfully been broken.
Yes, 7 people have been arrested in the Miami area. Officials say the plotters were in the early stages of planning an attack on the Sears Tower in Chicago.
They hoped for their attacks to be, quote, just as good or greater than 9/11.
Police arrested 6 men and charged them with planning to attack the Fort Dix Army base.
This is a new kind of terrorism. It is not only coming from outside the United States in, but it is also growing inside our own country.
Time magazine says Al-Qaeda was planning a cyanide attack, which could have killed thousands.
From what I last heard, the U.S. government has stopped over 31 attacks against the U.S. since 9/11.
These homegrown terrorists may prove to be as dangerous as groups like Al-Qaeda, if not more so.
In today's context, there are actually 2 different types of jihad. There's the violent jihad, where the Islamists use violence and terror to try to overthrow their enemy. And then there's what has been termed the cultural jihad, where these Islamists use in a most duplicitous way the laws and the rights they are given in our society to try to work against society and overthrow it.
America needs to understand that the jihadist machine is already within the society.
Americans are being told that many of the mainstream Muslim groups are also moderate, when in fact, if you look a little closer, you'll see a very different reality. One of their primary tactics is deception. They present themselves as moderate leaders committed to peace and condemning terror.
As Muslims, we want to state clearly
that those who commit acts of terror in the name of Islam are betraying the teachings of the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad.
But when asked about specific terrorist groups, CARE officials are either evasive or outright supportive.
Does CARE have a position on Palestinian Islamic Jihad?
We haven't published one.
Now, don't you think that you don't?
It's about the terrorist organization. It's not a terrorist organization.
And in 2000, Abdurrahman al-Amoudi openly supported terrorist groups.
Anybody is a supporter of Hamas here? Hear that, Bill Clinton. We are all supporters of Hamas. Allahu Akbar. Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Takbir.
But al-Amoudi went further than just cheering for these groups. In 2004, he was actually arrested on terror charges. Perhaps what made the al-Amoudi case so troubling was that he was considered by many in the media and government to be a moderate Muslim leader. And al-Amoudi isn't the only leader who's had a problem with the law. Many so-called moderate Muslim leaders have been convicted on terror-related charges. To be fair, on their website, CARE has condemned Al-Qaeda by name. But why won't they condemn Hamas or Hezbollah?
And you sit here now and in just one sentence tell me CARE condemns Hamas and CARE condemns Hezbollah.
I'm telling you in a very clear fashion, CARE condemns terrorist acts, whoever commits them, wherever they commit them, whenever they commit them.
That's not the same thing as saying you condemn Hamas and you condemn Hezbollah.
Well, I recognize that you don't like my answer to the question.
The FBI uncovered a secret document that seems to answer this and many other questions. This is believed to be the manifesto of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America.
Hamas grew out of the Muslim Brotherhood. Palestinian Islamic Jihad grew out of the Muslim Brotherhood. From the Egyptian Islamic Jihad movement grew the current movement of Al-Qaeda, for instance.
This 15-page manifesto outlines the goals and strategies of the Muslim Brotherhood's activities in North America. On page 7, the document states that their work in America is a kind of a grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within. And then it speaks about setting up groups and mosques and Islamic centers to achieve their ultimate goal, which is to destroy the miserable houses of the West so that they will be expelled and that Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. And at the end of the document, it lists the organizations that can help in carrying out these goals. Not only are many of these groups still in existence today, but they are the very groups who are thought to be the modern Muslim leadership of America. These are the groups like the MSA, ISNA, and notably the IAP. And where does CARE fit into all of this? In 1994, CARE was established by 3 of the leaders from the IAP. And it's well documented that the IAP was essentially a front group for Hamas. So perhaps that would explain why CARE won't condemn terror groups like Hamas, and also why they avoided participating in my Muslims Against Terror rally in 2004. In keeping with the goals of the document, many so-called moderate Muslim leaders have been caught on tape calling on America to become a Muslim country.
It would happen, and alhamdulillah, I have no doubt in my mind. It depends on me and you. Christ was the last sign. You will see a sample will be the second largest religion in America, and where we are now.
Islam is coming to America not through violence. It's coming to America the same way Christianity came to Rome.
You've got Imam Abdul Musa, who is known as an influential speaker in the Muslim community around the world.
Allah says that Islam will rise to its proper position in the world, whether these mushriks, whether these munafiqs, whether these criminals, whether these zalimeen, all of them, whether they get together, still Islam will reign supreme, whether they like it or not.
Are you starting to see a pattern here? The leaders of radical Islam, or many of them, realize that they cannot win the United States at the military level. So they plot another thing or another plot to infiltrate America from within.
Okay, we talked about that. We're all out of time, and I got about halfway through this, so maybe we'll finish it up. Tomorrow I have John Levy, an attorney, representing a number of Christian groups that are being attacked in Africa, and we're going to talk a little bit about some news in that area, but maybe I'll replay this on Monday and finish it up, just to make the point that this jihad is here, folks, and we need to deal with it. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.